after the lights went out. So
Yeah, I was like 15 minutes late.
Yeah,
But,
what is
stuff
that,
going, so
man?
it didn't matter, but
I still like being early to movies. I'm so we're live, by the way. So down for the movie experience. I got there at my movie last night. It was at 8:35. I was there at like 8:10. I had my milkshake already ready, set to go because I went to the
5 minutes early.
yeah,
Jesus.
man.
yeah, I
That's
It
understand.
was
early.
great. Yeah, it was fantastic. I just sat there on my phone and
I would be okay with being a little late, but I don't move around in the dark very well, especially up and down stairs, as Daryl can probably attest. As I have tumbled in a couple of theaters before.
He might have stared tumbled, yes.
Nice.
So it's much better when the lights are on and
see
nobody's
that's
there to see me fall. And
that's what I'm worried about too. See,
Yeah.
I'm also worried about Doug falling.
I will say pre-theater experience, AMC, top notch.
Yeah, it was good. That's
Really?
really? Good AMC also.
Yeah, they don't. Their commercials aren't stupid and annoying. They're the lights were on up until the movie came on. Like,
Yeah.
it was great.
What was Bellaterra, Doug? What, that wasn't an AMC.
it's called Cinema.
Cinemark.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cinemark. Yeah, Cinemark has a lot of dumb shit.
Yeah. I'm Maria Menounos. Yeah.
I love her. So whenever she would come on, I was so happy.
All right. Well then,
I listened to whatever dumb shit she had to say.
well, there you go.
I think I went to a Regal last time for whatever other movie I saw in theaters. I think it was Green Knight. And their put your phone away commercial was so stupid. I remember it was I think I talked about it on the podcast. It was like, don't look at the little screen. That's
Oh, yeah.
not where life happens.
Yeah.
And look at the big screen. That's where life happens. It's like, what kind of what are you talking about? It's like
I'm
people hiking and shit.
definitely
I was
a
like,
fan of assigned seating.
Me too.
I'm
That
definitely sold on that.
even when they brought that to like that shitty movie theater at Triangle Square, that was like amazing. Just
Yeah.
going to
hard to
shitty
do.
ass Triangle Square that had no stadium seating, and getting an assigned seat was fantastic. So,
I saw Gladiator there.
dude, we saw Lord of the Rings there.
Yeah.
way back in the
that's
D.
a long ass time ago, man.
Oh yeah, I was
That
like,
movie
getting
had
bright
changed
again.
hands multiple times since then.
Remember that who's your kindergarten teacher or something? She was there at line.
Miss Mitchell. Why do I remember her? Why do I know her name? I don't know what she looks
happened
like.
to be in line, and it was really weird. She's lying in front of us. I was like, "Aren't you that woman that teaches my child?" And
Sounds like you're accosting her. Something.
I know.
Aren't you that woman?
Aren't you that woman?
Aren't you that educator?
Yeah, are you an educator? How dare you?
How dare you have a life that's not specifically educating children?
Yeah, that's like when you see your teachers outside of work.
I was like, shouldn't you be in a closet somewhere?
Be
Yeah.
planning the next class.
Well,
Recharging
that's
your
what they
batteries.
do. They put teachers away at the end of the school day,
Mm-hmm.
and
Makes
it's like
sense.
laptops. You know, like if you forget to put your teacher back in the right slot, then you'll get a.
That's why they're grouchy in the morning.
Yeah.
That way they're laying on the floor in a.
That's why you get
Under
a
their desk.
substitute because they're charging the current.
Oh
teacher.
yeah,
That's
That
what
makes sense.
happens. Yeah. You know, the other teacher is out at the shop getting repaired.
You guys ever accidentally call your teacher mom?
no, I never had that experience, but I've heard about
Your
it
kid would do
many
that?
times.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever did that. Yeah. I did have a teacher that would dump my desk out all the time, though. She'd just dump it right on the floor. Clean this up. Okay. Fuck.
I did have well, there was a couple of classes where we'd have eraser shaving fights. So we used to take those erasers, the eraser plus that you could put on the end of your already eraser pencil.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those little eraser hats.
Yeah, it's like
and
a little hat that you put on your pencil.
Yeah, we used to tear those into tiny little pieces and then throw them at each other. Like these tiny,
my
tiny,
gosh.
like little crumbs of eraser, and chuck them at each other across the room when the teacher's back was turned. And you would feel them, these tiny little things, and sometimes
I
they
used
get
to-
like caught in your mouth and stuff. It was great.
I got detention one time because I was doing the same thing, except I sat by the door, and in this particular classroom, it was all carpet, except right by the door, there's like a little tile. So I think a lot of classrooms probably have the same setup.
Yeah.
And the tile was old, and so the grout was like broken. And so I would just lean over and like grab a piece of grout out of the ground, and I would huck it across the room at people. at my friends. And then I got caught one time.
Jesus.
And she like came over and she like looked at the ground, saw there's a fuck ton of grout missing, looked back at me, it was like, are you throwing grout at kids? And I was like, oh shit.
It's
like
original. I mean, at least could have given you credit for that.
One of those things that's like, it's innocuous when you're doing it, but when you get caught for it, you're like, I cannot possibly defend myself here. Yes, I have been throwing grout. Yes, I understand it's ridiculous. If you have to tell my parents, I understand. It's just like,
I am a child. I am bored.
Yeah.
Normal.
like,
You understand this. You know what you were getting into.
accosting kids by throwing grout at them. But you know what? It was all in good fun.
It was a gesture of goodwill.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah. Speaking of goodwill, this is the We Like This podcast. We are down to the an original forecast
like
of
in the
people.
weather?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't really work. But yeah, so we're doing a Last Night in Soho. So I'm joined by myself, Dan Waters, Ben Nickerson, Doug Waters, and Daryl Waters. And yeah. I'll just start this off. I didn't really like the movie, man. I was kind of
Really?
bored. I was
You were
kind of bored. Kind
Oh,
of
man,
bored.
really
I
liked
was
it.
a little underwhelmed by it. And I really wanted to like this movie because I really like Edgar Wright, and I was like, and I love psychological horrors. So I want to say I had higher expectations than what I got. So it was okay. It was okay. There's a lot of things I think that he did incorrectly, and I want to get into that later. But yeah, I was kind of expecting a little bit more out of old Eddie. So
Eddie.
yeah, because I like Baby Driver. I liked
Yeah.
a lot of his previous stuff. Even I do think Shaun of the Dead is his best. I'd actually say that Scott Pilgrim is his best movie. That's my favorite movie of his, but I'd say that Shaun of the Dead is his best movie. If that makes any sense.
I think Shaun
Yeah,
of the Dead is
makes
really
sense.
well executed, but I actually would argue that Hot Fuzz is his best movie.
Really? Okay.
I think Hot Fuzz demonstrates the most. It's the best of like his comedy, plus a little bit more of his maturity that he demonstrated in Baby Driver, as far as like cinematography and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And what I mean by maturity is just like well executed shots. Like Baby
He got
Driver,
better. He got
yeah.
better at what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was pretty
Yeah.
obvious in Hot Fuzz that he had learned something from
Probably like Tarantino or somebody. He became friends with somebody in between the release of those movies. Shaun of the Dead is a great film. It's just it's not quite expertly crafted. And then Hot Fuzz feels like it's expertly crafted, but it still has a lot of like the joy that you get from a film like Shaun of the Dead. And then Baby Driver, I think, has a lot less of the joy, but is just a pleasure to watch.
Mhm.
And then this movie was, I wouldn't say it had any, it was definitely like a completely different kind of movie. And maybe that's why you feel, maybe it's just got to hone his craft on psychological horrors. Or psychological
horror.
Either way,
More of a
I
horror.
didn't really know what to expect with the movie. I thought that the beginning maybe dragged a little bit, particularly the very beginning before she gets to London. And like the grandma, I thought like it wasn't that she was a bad actress. I just felt like they gave her some lines that I was just like, okay, like all right. Like there's like scene where she's like holding the picture of the mom and her, and then she's talking to the kid, and she's like, I'm gonna go into a whole long spiel about the past, and I was just like, fuck, this is like the tropiest thing ever. And it stood out so much because it happened like right away. I was like, this is like an indie film, the way that it starts,
But he's kind of an indie director, even at $43 million budget.
I mean, I guess, but I actually once the story started going, I liked it. I thought I was along for the ride. I think maybe going to movie theaters actually lets me enjoy movies a bit more. I know that's not a hot take, but I really felt it here because I was like enthralled the entire time. Like I was just like, wow, this is fucking crazy. And I was like super invested in the story.
There's a
and
certain
I think-
level of immersion that comes from sitting in a movie theater that you can't get at home, which is
Yeah,
why
yeah.
like I installed, you can see them out of focus here, but my surround sound speakers, because when I'm watching Netflix and I'm, eating my tacos or whatever, I've got surround sound. It just helps. I love it. So
It makes me feel guilty for not having watched Dune that way, because I just watched Dune. I have surround sound too, but like it, I feel like you do definitely. This movie has convinced me that you do get something out of the theater.
I wish back to Dune really quick. I wish I'd watched Dune in the theater.
me too.
Me
I
too.
It
really wish I
it
did.
would have been
I
better.
enjoyed it. I think there's an element to that I enjoyed it, and I think at least 1 or 2 points of my rating was because of the theater experience. I think
Oh,
it
you
would
did
have
watch it?
probably would have.
Okay.
It probably
yeah,
would've-
Doug went and saw it. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
theater movie. I
Yeah.
think it's part of the problem with
Yes.
for me.
It's most
I watched
definitely
it on my
sound,
phone.
the movement
which
and
is
stuff
not-
like that. When
You
you
watched
see
it
it
on
on a
your
widescreen,
phone?
it just
Oh my
it
God.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dune wasn't available on HBO Max as well at the same
Yeah, it
time.
was.
Right?
It was.
Yeah,
yes, I
it
watched
was
on
like it was literally like a I actually watched it in 2 sittings. Now that we're talking about Dune, I watched
well,
it
really quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it because it was pretty long. So I was like, okay, I reached a pretty good halfway point, and then I went and did something else. Like I actually like
Oh.
left the house. I was supposed to go somewhere else, and so I stopped on a Friday and then finished it on Saturday. So
Not an ideal way to consume a movie.
didn't.
No.
It didn't. Not definitely not the way I like to consume stuff. Especially not movies. I don't like to like stop movies halfway through because there's never really a good spot to. There's never perfect. You're not supposed to stop.
They're
the
not.
movie
Yeah, they
halfway
don't.
through,
They're not written
meant
that way. Yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyways,
Really quick though, Danny and I experienced. I think we was talking about before too. When we went and saw Gravity.
oh
it was
yeah,
such a good movie because we saw it in the theater.
yeah.
And then it gave it a while, and then I rented it. I'm like, this doesn't hold up as well.
I have heard that
Gravity's
about
not.
Gravity
It's
specifically.
not
I mean,
a great movie.
I wonder how many movies I loved because I saw them in the theater first. Well, that was my first experience with them.
Mm.
Then there's movies where I walked out, like Natural Born Killers. I walked out of that motherfucker, and then watched it later, years later, and I loved it. I think it's a great film.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was
I-
so different. Like at the time, it was so different. I just couldn't do it. Too artsy, too weird, too unique, and I just couldn't do it. It took me years. And Danny, who was on podcast as a guest last time, and Derek kept bugging me. And I was like, finally, all right. And I watched it again. I was like, oh fuck, this is great. And I really liked it actually.
I mean, there's some movies that kind of lend themselves to it a little bit better. I'd say, like, I really, like we were just saying, I really wish I watched Dune in the theaters. I don't think it would have marred the experience of this movie anymore, Like, I didn't think that this was a particular, I really like that I went and saw it, and I would still prefer going to movie theaters to watch movies. Like, hands down, we've had the thing now where we can watch movies on, like, HBO Max or the theaters if we want to, and always when I go to the theaters, I'm like, that is a much better experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially 'cause we
I
have-
think I agree.
We have the Alamo here, which is, we've talked about before, is just like, that's like supreme movie theater. So
The Alamo is just hard to get into on a weekday. They don't have good show times to make it to
No.
the podcast.
no, they don't.
But
like this, I was able to get a 4 o'clock showing. I mean,
yeah, I got 5 o'clock showing.
That's a great. That's right after my nap window, so I was good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went last night at, I could either do 5 o'clock, which wouldn't work because I get off of work at 5, or
Right.
I could do 8:35. That was it. Those are my two options.
that's
So I was
brutal.
like, well, I guess I'm going at 8:35. So
There was a showing last night at the Alamo near me that was at 11:45.
Jesus.
Could you imagine going to the movie theater at 11:45 to see a 2.5-hour film?
Yeah, I've done it many times, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
want
me
to do it
and
for
Doug
like.
slept through many times.
Yeah.
Anytime.
That was great. That was how I was able to go and watch Prometheus at midnight and Indiana Jones at midnight and District 9 at midnight because they were all Thursday nights. So we go on a
Yeah.
Thursday night,
Oh, it's
which I
brutal.
wasn't really allowed to because there was always a school night the next day or a school day. So, but yeah, it was great.
A school night the next day.
Yeah,
School night the next. Hold on,
You know how
let
it
me bust out
works.
my calculator
Yeah,
to
you know
understand
how
this
it
one.
works.
And then you got to watch movies, and Doug.
Maybe I
and
should have
got
gone to
sleep.
more school nights. I would
Yeah.
have been able to speak properly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your problem was going to school at night, apparently.
Hey, there's nobody here.
But
It's happened to my
yeah,
education.
the movie was for me like So I will say this, as far as taste is concerned, I don't really like horror all that much. Like I've never really been super impressed by horror. Most of the time I find that horror movies are like gross,
like that term,
or like they just do things that make me like not want to participate in the film. And I guess you could say, like, I mean, maybe I'm a little bitch or something, but like it's more that I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't want to look at this.
Totally agree with you. This is my problem with a lot of like, this is me. I'm the same way. Well, except I do like horror movies. I just don't like when they take you out of the experience. Anytime that you like want to avert your eyes and not watch the movie screen, for one, you're breaking immersion, and then two, you're not watching the fucking movie. So what's the point?
Right.
So I mean, there's certain people that they do like that experience, which I definitely realize. But for me, for somebody who likes to be completely like, I want to go in, and then as soon as the movie starts, I like blink and I'm out of the movie. I'm like, oh, because I was so immersed, and you don't
right.
feel
And
real life anymore.
I consider you a horror
that.
buff, so I think you're kind of a horror buff compared to me. So I appreciate that we have the same sentiment. This movie,
I don't like that stuff.
Pretty much nailed exactly how much like just raw horror that I want in anything. It's like that skit on like fucking whatever where they mix the peanut butter and the chocolate and like it turns out to be Reese's Pieces or Reese's peanut butter cups. It's like, oh, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. Oh, you got peanut butter in my chocolate. For me, it's like this was exactly as much horror as I wanted to get mixed into like this this drama. And I was like, that was a good amount, and it was thrilling enough. I was like, damn, I'm trying to like understand what the fuck is going on. And I do feel like the plot beats, maybe because I don't watch a ton of horror movies, they definitely surprised me. Like I was like, I felt really fucking smart because as soon as that old guy fucking walked on screen, I was like, that's Jack. That's definitely him. That's him. And then, and then they don't even tell you, which when that happened, when she was just like, there's this old guy, he's got to be Jack. I was like, yeah, oh, fuck yeah, dude. Like, they didn't even have to tell us. Like, there wasn't like a scene where she fucking pulls out his ID card and is like, Jack, the guy that killed the girl. And she's like, oh my God. And then she looks at the camera and she's like, that's Jack, the one who killed the girl. And then, you know what I mean? Like, movies fucking do that all the time.
Yeah. So they walk you down the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. They didn't do that stupid bullshit. Like, thank God. And then he gets hit by the car and I was like, oh, they killed off Jack. All right, that was cool. That hasn't felt like 2.5 hours. And then they're like, that's not Jack. That's fucking the copper from your visions. And I was like,
it's Finnick O'Dare.
Yeah. Oh, they got me. Yeah. Shit. I totally got. The movie tricked me, and I was happy for it. I was like, shit, man, the movie totally tricked me. And also, this girl's being a total bitch to this like random police officer too. I was like,
well, by then she was burnt out,
Yeah,
I mean, that police officer was kind of a dick too.
Yeah, he
was pretty.
He's still pretty creepy, man. He's still pretty creepy.
Well, that was
Stamp. How dare you?
Not
Terrence Stamp is creepy. Look at his face,
dude. I love Terrence Stamp. By the way, I love Terrence Stamp. He was the best fucking Zod ever. Even though that was a terrible, cheesy fucking Superman 2, but he was a great fucking Zod. He's a great actor. He's great in everything he does.
And then the ending, I mean, I could see how spoiler alert for people watching this brand new movie, not having seen it.
But no one's gonna go see, yeah.
Potentially. I hope people see it. I enjoyed it. But the ending where the old lady turns out to be a serial killer and like, all the shit led up to her like going on a rampage, murdering a bunch of well-to-do men. I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. And then I thought for a split second, how are they going to make this old lady intimidating? And honestly, like, they could have really flubbed that. It's a really ballsy decision to try to make a fucking like old crotchety lady with a knife a scary thing. But I felt like they did a decent enough job. Like, I wasn't taken out by the fact that she was being chased by an old lady. And like, looking back on it, I definitely had a moment where I was like, this old lady's not going to be scary. But then also they kind of dropped. What I did notice was that she got fucking the main character, Eloise, gets poisoned. And like, it just doesn't matter, I guess.
Just didn't get poisoned.
It didn't
She
work.
just like
They sort of showed a part where she's kind of thrown up on the stairs,
Yeah, I saw that.
and I was
too.
like, okay, that's their get out for this
Yeah.
is how she's going to survive this poisoning.
yeah, she had
And she didn't drink the
way
whole
too-
fucking,
She also
didn't
didn't
drink the whole
drink,
cup.
But
so.
the old lady saw how much spilled out and was like,
this is
"Yeah,
enough.
it's enough to kill you. Yeah, you'll die." She like looks at her. She's just like, "Yeah, you're gonna die," and then like walks out of the room. And it was like, I mean, I don't know if I'd killed 150 men or whatever and put them into the floorboards and walls of my house, then maybe I would have made sure that the other person was gonna die. I don't know, but yeah, that whole
This was her
Oh.
first poisoning.
that,
Yeah,
oh, it
she's
was
a bit
the first-
rusty.
That's what it is. She's
A lot
an
like-
amateur poisoner.
A lot like this is Edgar Wright's first psychological horror. This was that old lady's first poisoning, and both of them could have been executed better.
I love the movie now.
Now
that
I definitely think the movie could have been executed better, but
I
I,
think
gotta
it
be
needed
honest,
more
I had a
than
great
that.
time.
So I want to touch on a couple things too. So there's a lot that I really liked about this movie. First off, why did people think that Matt Smith was ever attractive as the Doctor? Blows my mind. The first second, like you see him in this movie, I was like,
Chicks dig him.
oh, dude, he's got these eyes. They look like little like beetles poking out from underneath a rock or something like that. He's got this massive boulder brow. Not an attractive dude.
Yeah, Sandy thought she was handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Picked
she's
up on that right away.
Well, you know, once again, their eyes complement each other, right? He's got little beady eyes, and she's got these fucking things.
I'm actually
got-
convinced that she's got normal eyes, but she has eyes on the side of her head as like
Yeah.
a warning against predators kind of thing, like butterflies.
Or maybe
have
she's just
eyes on the
always
wings.
paired with dudes whose eyes are super close together. We've never actually seen her just like next to a normal looking person.
She's like
Maybe
Yeah.
she's like a hot goldfish, is what it is. Right? It's like one of them fucking bug-eyed goldfishes that's bobbling around the tank. She's really pretty.
Nailed it.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This felt sophisticated enough as a story. It didn't feel like that Happy Birthday movie, which was also a psychological thriller. You remember which one I'm talking
That
about?
was for
Yeah,
kids,
I didn't
though.
really
That
like
was for
that one
kids.
at all.
Yeah, that was for kids.
I was glad
Well-
that this was PG or this was rated R. I like
Right.
that little. There's something that needed to happen there, and it's about the story really. So I liked how mature the story was. First off,
Yeah.
like I was actually very surprised. I was like, wow, they went pretty dark with this. Like this woman basically has her dreams taken away from her and is sold as a whore. It's pretty rough. It's a little rough.
Yeah.
And
little
the further they
rough,
get into
the-
it, and like one of my favorite sequences actually in the movie was that moment where she's trying to get away from Jack, and she's going down that hallway, and the camera keeps panning to the sides, and
Right.
it's showing all these different like scenes, and I was just like, whoa, okay. I
There's
wasn't
the girl
really
doing
expecting
heroin. There's the girl overdosing. There's the girl blowing a rich guy.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
That was a great sequence.
that was really really well done. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this, because at first I think Ben, you were talking about it too, is like it was a pretty slow start, and so this was a great way to kind of just like kick off the rest of the story.
I think we spent exactly as much time as we should have with the relationship between Anya Taylor-Joy and Eloise. What's her name? Sandy and Eloise. Because like it was just enough time for Sandy to kind of like be enthralled with it, but it wasn't like for fucking ever where I'm just like, okay, I get it. You fucking like her.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, and she like goes and like buys a couple trinkets from a store, and like that's pretty much it. It doesn't like, she does the hair thing too, but like it doesn't really change her fundamental personality a lot. I think a lot of movies that try to do something similar to this, where it's like they're being influenced, it's like they get completely fucking redone as a human being,
Yep.
and it's just like that's not how it works.
The latest
Yeah.
Candyman.
Oh,
Like
sure.
the latest
Yeah.
Candyman, sure, yeah.
Where
The same
they
type of thing.
completely like they turn him into a zombie, and where he's actually a pretty enigmatic character. He's pretty charismatic, but so the biggest flaw I think with the movie is that Eloise is into fashion when she should have been a singer.
That's your
That
feeling.
was the biggest flaw that I couldn't help but think about the entire movie. I was like, she has the only connection that she has to Sandy is Sandy's confident. and that's
I
it.
actually thought
She has
that was a
she
really
does not look like her
Right.
mother, which would have been
Yeah.
like you see, like that would have made sense. Eloise is not a singer who lacks confidence, which would have made sense because just like, oh, okay, this is my idol. This is who I'm going to look up to. And that's pretty much it. Like there's nothing that like that makes sense for these characters to like touch on, I suppose, except that Sandy's confident and Eloise is not.
and that Sandy lives in. So I think the
In
thing
the
that
same room.
you're missing,
It's the room,
it's
right?
the-
Yeah.
It's not the room. Well, I mean, yeah, physically it's the room, but very specifically, the thing that they have in common is that Sandy is a hot babe that lives in the 60s, and Eloise is a fucking loser that adores the 60s.
That's a pretty harsh. I would say she was a loser.
Well,
Yeah,
but that's
she
like
kinda was.
that's the trope of the movie, right? She's a country bumpkin fucking loser, and Sandy is in the city 60s.
The
like
fucking
flapper.
looks like a rotten dog.
She doesn't look like. Oh my god!
I'm kidding.
That was brutal.
I'm kidding.
Sandy
Thomas's-
or,
He's a
Thomas's
little
English
mousy.
Muffins is a very
Yeah.
cute girl.
Yeah,
She's
she
a
is.
little mousy.
yeah, she's
a
very
little
mousy.
mousy though.
Yeah.
She was also.
She has-
I think
attractive.
she was. I think she was great casting. I was surprised that she had such a strong role in this. You know, I feel like Anya Taylor-Joy watches this movie and it's like, man, I really wasn't a main character in this movie at all, was I?
Yeah, right.
Well, I
She,
hope
like,
you
goes-
wouldn't think that. I mean, I was surprised. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy would have a much bigger role in this movie.
I thought so too. One thing that I was annoyed by, though, maybe not annoyed by, but I felt like it was an okay, I get it thing. They used that mirror effect way too much. We should have
Really?
seen
I
it.
like
Maybe,
the mirror effect.
yeah.
dude. When they're
I like it.
dancing and every time he turns, it's like her again. I was like, okay, fuck, dude. Like,
I like that part.
I'm sick of it. I'm
of
sick
that
of
was
seeing
practical.
her over and over again.
Yeah, she just kept ducking out and she kept ducking in and ducking out. They must have practiced that for like 4 or 6 minutes.
It was a cool dance move. It was actually, I don't think it was there. I think I just got saturated by that point. I think it was specifically walking down the stairs and then there's like that mirror right there. And,
Yeah.
and fucking Eloise is like, oh, hi, remember, she's actually me. I'm experiencing this.
I'm Mickey Mouse.
she's
Pretty- she said she had a pretty high pitched voice. No, I actually do.
Pretty
I
mousy.
liked all the mirror stuff, although visually I liked it, but plot wise, I think you're totally right.
They
Ben.
used it
It should
so
have been-
much.
If they were trying to go
It
with
should have
this
just brought
direction,
you into it. And
exactly.
Then, and then
This should have been the initial mirror effect would have been the way that they bring you into the world, and then we're seeing the entire dream sequence through Sandy's point of view and not Eloise anymore.
Except for extremely important plot beats where we were
Exactly.
reminded, oh yeah, Eloise is being traumatized by the trauma that this girl experienced, right? Like that would be, I think, the most effective way to communicate this. But it feels a little bit like someone was like, yeah, but it looks really cool, so let's just use it fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
and I think it oversaturated a little bit. It was less impactful when the mirror scenes, like the one where she's looking up at the ceiling and like, you know, seeing like basically being fucking, God, could you imagine getting ghost raped by somebody that was consensually doing like that whole
I'll never do
situation
that.
where she was like this virgin, like she's clearly like a virgin girl who doesn't know anything about the world. And her like first sexual experience is in the body of a prostitute as like faceless men just constantly like have sex with her. I can't imagine how traumatizing that would be.
Pretty
Like
bad.
that was absolutely horrifying. I was like, oh my God, this would be terrible. So
Probably
that,
better
like,
than my first experience.
that'd definitely be my last night in Soho.
In Soho.
100 faceless men.
Jesus. That's what the movie, I mean, the
Last
porn
Night in Soho.
rendition in Soho.
Okay,
But-
this brings me to another
yeah.
point.
Go ahead.
So, I think the entire sequence where Sandy's kind of self-destructing and she's just kind of like given into this lifestyle that she's been forcefully brought into,
Right.
also doesn't make sense. I don't think personally doesn't make sense for Eloise to react so strongly to this. She
She
should
got-
have been a singer. No.
She got
Hold on.
train banged by ghosts, Danon.
Listen,
That's
it's
traumatic.
Perfectly normal.
you
Perfectly
can
normal.
there's therapy for that.
Ghosts
So,
are known.
I'm
to
not
be
talking about the
very,
ghost. I'm not talking about the ghost.
very
I'm actually
lovers.
I'm actually
Oh, you're talking
talking
about her connection.
Very
to,
giving.
To
I'm
Sandy.
still,
ghosts
I'm
are
still talking
attentive
about the
lovers.
connection to Sandy. So after that first, this is when it really started to fall apart for me. Was that first time where she sees Sandy doing the burlesque show
Yeah.
and becomes very disillusioned by the idea of her now. That's when it starts to fall
Wow.
apart. No. It does happen.
Okay.
This is when she starts to be like, oh, maybe like
She looks.
she
sad.
starts to fall apart in class. Like she like gets frustrated at the thing, and she's kind of like lost her role model. Again,
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
it still
the shine
doesn't
wore
make
off,
it doesn't make sense because
No. Actually, hold on a second. But I don't think that's. I would say that there is also the part where Sandy tries to stand up for herself immediately after that, after the burlesque show, because she doesn't want to sleep with the older man.
Yeah,
And then,
ends up doing it anyway.
well, she like breaks out of there's the whole scene where she like breaks out of the mirror, or Eloise breaks out of the mirror, and then she like finds herself back in her room, and she's like, ah, fuck, what the hell? And then she's like, oh shit, this like nightmare world isn't over yet, and the old man is coming in to have sex with, or had already had sex with Sandy, and she's like, oh fuck, my role model like caved and like had sex with the old rich guy, and then she like wakes up and she thinks everything's fine. And she goes to tries to hit her alarm, and she gets grabbed. That scared the absolute shit out of me. That absolutely got me. I was like, "Oh God!" And then like she woke up, and I was like, "Tropey as the jump scare is." That was a very good place
Very trippy.
to put a jump scare, because I had absolutely no idea that was coming.
Maybe I should watch.
a drum ski.
A drum ski,
Yeah, to put a
Well,
drum ski. Perfect spot for a drum ski.
Wasn't that one of the guys who brought about the Bolshevik Revolution? Oh, that was
Trotsky.
Trotsky, my bad.
Trotsky.
Yeah, easy.
I took a
tip.
Trotsky before I got on this podcast.
Nice.
4 tacos.
But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because you don't feel like the connection between the two of them was strong. But I do feel like that night was a lot worse than just seeing her burlesque breakdown.
And that's what it kind of turns into. It becomes a haunting.
Yeah.
It's an actual like haunting. That's what this becomes. But my problem with the actual like plot device of this role model thing, where she obviously is a role model. She like dyes her hair a different color,
clearly
purchases the same leather jacket, the white leather jacket. Right. It would have been a very easy fix to make this a little bit more cohesive if they just made her Eloise a singer, and she was going to a music school. That's all they needed to do to make these match up, because then it would make sense for her to see herself in Sandy. Because I think one of the things that they try to portray is Eloise is trying to become this person, right? She's trying to become who she thinks she should be. Like she wants to become an artist, let's say, a creator. Let's make it general. And then she's watching somebody else get dragged down and basically turn down this path that is like a terrible, terrible path to turn down, and lets herself become, this person. And so for Eloise to see her role model do that is very destructive. But I think like it would have been so much more impactful if they were going down the same path. And this is a path that, like Eloise is like, oh, I'm going to follow this role model because this is what I'm going to do. Like it's already been working out. Like people have been commenting on my hair and like all that stuff. And then she takes this left turn. That would have been more derailing for Eloise, because all of a sudden she has no idea what to do.
Yeah,
it didn't strike me as much because they're completely different types of like art. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I can.
It was like they were so close. It was like it's still art, but they should have just made her a singer. It made it so much more sense. She could have been a truck driver, and then Sandy could have been a singer, and then it would have been like, okay, it's like the same amount of impact.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down actually, because as the kids say, I think that's one of the wrong things that's wrong with it is it made the rules of what Eloise's power was or whatever. Her ghost power. It made it more confusing.
It was a haunting. She was just being
straight up.
Yeah, but
haunted.
the whole intro was like the mom's crazy, so maybe she had some fucking secret power, and you got some power kind of thing. The grandma talked about it. But I think
that power is called schizophrenia.
Is that it?
I think
so.
Yeah.
Well, she never gets. They never address it later, so she was clearly not schizophrenia.
Well,
I
I
totally
think-
thought it was just like schizophrenia. Like,
I mean,
But
she
it's
might-
not like
she
at
might
the end
have
they're like,
schizophrenia. Yeah, she tried to
"Thank
stab
God."
somebody. So
You know,
like,
thank God you're on these pills now and everything's fine. They
we
never
don't need
address
that.
it.
Come on, Daryl.
Yeah,
you know,
but
we
we
don't
don't-
need
yeah,
that
we
kind
don't.
of storytelling where it's like, hey, by the way, I like the soft magic of her weird fucking ghost powers. I
No,
didn't want them to be
I-
explained.
I thought that no, but I'm just saying because they were so different, it made the connection harder to connect. And I enjoyed this movie. I think more than you did, Dan. And I think like all movies, I think it's about 28 minutes too long. You know,
this is a pretty long movie.
it was 2 hours. It was 2 hours. It was a little too long for what it was doing. Any horror film, it just most movies should be an hour and a half. Seriously,
Yeah, and especially something like this is get to the point.
we
and
already
wrap
got it.
up
We
in
know
about
these.
90 minutes.
Yeah,
Is
We
because
know the story. Yeah.
this one was what almost 2 hours is like an hour and 56 minutes or something.
I think it was about
And
56,
I
yeah.
think that something like that is you're just filling too much, and it starts to get repetitive where you see the mirror repeats and stuff like that. If
Coulda
you
cut
pulled a
that.
few of those, edited some of that out, you could probably get this into a slick 90 minutes. And I think more people would watch it. I have to ask some questions because hearing you guys talk makes me feel like I missed something. Because now in the beginning she sees her mom is dead, right? Sees
her
her in
mom
the
is
mirror.
her mom is dead.
That kind of gives me the idea that she can kind of see spirits or something like that. Then when she gets into London, she sees the mysterious guy, but she turns around, he's not there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the old lady is Sandy.
Yes.
So how did she see Sandy if
This is what I'm
Sandy's
talking
not
about. The
dead?
confusing
Okay,
rules.
so this
Oh.
is actually
Because
this,
you're
That's a
talking
good-
about
that's
it being a
point. That's a
haunting,
really
No,
good point.
this
but
is-
I'm like, wait a minute.
this is what
How
Dana has
did all
been
this
trying to
happen
say.
when,
So
and I understand the guys. I understand what's his name, Matt. I understand all the
Jack.
Matt Jack.
sorry.
Matt Jack
I think
Smith.
the actor's name is Matt and
Jack.
Jack. And I understood that. Like I said, when it came up that
I can
here the
explain
old
this.
lady is Sandy, I'm like, wait a minute.
I can explain this, and
I mean,
Dana already.
I
answered
think
it.
I understand, but like I said, for me anyway, it just did not make sense. And as
So-
far as to comment on what Dana said before, is
I
if
You'll
gotta
get in
ask
there.
questions.
You'll get in
doesn't
there,
want
Ben.
the answer at all.
you get in there.
Well, hold on. Doug's going.
I'm just running while I got the moment. The other thing was I didn't have as much of a problem. I mean, I like the idea that you're posing of her being a singer. I did understand that what they were doing is kind of giving her enough space so that she could move towards Sandy and Sandy could move towards her. Ellie comes up and goes into her class, and what does she design? A 60s dress. A 60s dress that looks exactly like what she first sees Sandy wearing. And in point of fact, she draws Sandy as her model.
Yeah.
And they sort of make a point of that. And I think, was it done well? I don't know. Like I said, I saw a number of problems, but okay, you were going to just explain why Sandy could be a ghost and not dead. So
Yeah. So basically, Dana hit the nail on the head, which is that it's a haunting. So they very clearly state in the beginning of the movie, the grandma says into the camera, it's one of those moments. She says, "You can feel things. You can experience like basically the dead," is what she says. And so I think that seeing the mom is not supposed to be taken just as like, oh, I see dead people like in Sixth Sense. It's supposed to be like she just has a connection with the dead that's stronger than like literally anybody else, to the point that it's like it feels like an actual superpower.
okay, but Sandy's not dead.
Okay, so
I
let
have
me
a couple
explain.
explanations for that too.
It's a haunting. This girl who has an affinity with dead people and can experience dead people, which is what they say, you can feel them. She goes and lives in a room where 150 people supposedly had been fucking murdered by
Dead
the
people.
same person.
Was that many?
It was like 100. She said she
So,
killed
yeah,
like
it's like
100.
150 people.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
And they were all fucking boarded up into the walls of the house. And so this girl is literally surrounded by all these people who share the exact same traumatic history with the exact same person. And that's why Sandy's that's why the past is like basically infecting her, and she's seeing it this way because she's basically experiencing what the ghosts like want her to see. She's being haunted. And so like that it's essentially a supernatural experience that she's having.
And I get that, and I accept that. It's just that makes her seeing her mom and her seeing the guy in the train station in London completely useless.
I don't think it makes it useless. I think
it's not the same thing. She's seeing a ghost of her mother, and she's seeing a ghost of this strange person.
Yeah, she's experiencing the dead.
Okay, but
I mean, so that like I think that's why they don't explain that she sees ghosts. Like I think it's very specifically like they leave it kind of soft, and like they don't try to explain specifically what her powers are, because that helps with the narrative of like, you know, not understanding exactly who Sandy is, or like not being able to realize that Sandy's still alive. Because you could also make the same argument with Jack. Like, why can she see Jack? Jack's not dead. She sees Jack all over the fucking place. But then it's like, oh, it's not Jack. It's
Jack?
Yeah.
Actually, we don't know. We don't know what Jack's whereabouts. We assume he's dead at this point.
Well,
they show him.
He gets fucking murdered.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they show him because
that's kind of a turning point where she thinks Sandy is being killed by Jack, but in fact, Sandy is killing Jack.
Right, but I'm just saying that the same problem that you had with Sandy being alive, you could still have this problem with the movie implying that Jack is still alive, because that's what the implication is that Jack is that creepy old man. And so you
right, and I didn't buy
that's just a red herring. That's just a red herring.
I know it's red herring. I'm saying that narratively, it has the same impact. You think that she can see the ghost of somebody who is chasing her, but he's actually still alive, because that ghost is harassing her while she thinks that the old man is Jack, and we as the audience think that the old man is Jack.
But
and so you would still have to explain that to yourself.
You haven't answered that part. Why is she seeing Sandy? Sandy's not a ghost.
Because she's being haunted.
Hold on.
It's fine. Like I said,
but not by Sandy.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm willing to accept that. It's just that while I was watching the film, I didn't buy that.
It's just weird to me because
it just stands out to me. The other thing was when she was coming down the stairs, it's a reflection of Ellie, and then she gets into that big mirror, and it's this big moment, and all of a sudden she's Sandy.
Yeah,
makes no sense.
I'm fine with that. Well, but I mean, this what I'm talking what I'm talking about with the rules, right? Is they Quentin Tarantino talked about this about The Following. And I really like The Following, but there's something wrong with The Following.
Is this The Following? Is this Christopher Nolan's first movie?
No. Maybe I'm not saying the right name of it's that one that girl has. It's a horror film where people keep walking. It Follows. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. The Following is Christopher Nolan, right? It Follows. Yeah. So he points out in the problem because It Follows. I really like It Follows.
Me too.
I think it's a good movie, but there's something wrong with it, and that's why it's not better than it could be. And Quentin Tarantino pointed out that the rules are not set in stone. They change. What this thing happens to, like later in the movie, it's invisible now. And like, what is this thing? You got to set the rules and stick to them. And this movie does the same thing. And I think that's what its problem is it doesn't stick. It doesn't set the rules and it doesn't stick to them. What? Okay. So it's a haunting, but then why can we see Sandy? And if Sandy's not dead, she's the old woman. You know what I mean? You got to, for the viewer, you got to cut out 28 minutes, but you got to set the rules and stick to them, or then it makes the movie feel off. And that's why this movie, and I enjoy this movie. I actually liked at the end when it was revealed that she was a serial killer and like all the dudes were in the wall and stuff. I was like, whoa, this is cool. I really like that.
And then when she gets into the room and like they're like ghosts, like their spectral things are like reaching out and grabbing her, and she's like basically in this hell room, and it's like kind of just a big like, yeah, get it? She's sleeping amongst all these dead people. No wonder she went fucking crazy.
Yeah, all that shit was good. All that shit was good. I think her going to the police made absolutely near zero sense, and that's just something that they just do in movies.
No, that made total sense. I was totally happy with that part. She thought that the Jack was the murderer and he was still alive and running around.
But I would have gotten to one cop is in there making fun of her, and then the other cop is just, I totally believe you.
I just don't know what I feel. I just feel like it did nothing for the story. Went nowhere and did nothing. It was the thing I would have cut out of the film. It didn't do anything.
I feel like this was actually
one of the old lady to want to kill her.
Yeah, because it started raising questions. So I think this is actually one of the few times in horror movies where they do go to the police, and it never ever makes sense in these movies, right? Although it is a totally logical thing to do. But it actually made sense in this movie because she's like, hey, there's a whole murder that happened that I'm pretty sure I know who the guy is. And he's just walking around, and I've like seen him at my job. Like, this needs to be investigated. And I was totally in for that side of it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like this.
Not to mention she got chased by ghosts to the police station. And so there's also like a sense of urgency in that, like, I don't know what to do. Maybe if I solve the murder, I'll stop getting fucking assaulted by ghosts. You know, like there was definitely a big part of that too, where she was just, it seemed like she was just trying to fix her own problems.
And that, speaking of being assaulted by ghosts in the hell room, another huge problem that I had with this movie. And I was like, in my head the entire time, I was just like imagining what the Screen Rant guy would be saying. Yeah. I can't remember his name, but the moment where she goes into the room and she's going towards the emergency landline, that's it. It's just for emergencies. And the hands are popping out and grabbing her, and she's getting dragged into the ground, and it's like scary, and it's like, oh my God, the ghosts are gonna kill her. And then they like move her away from the telephone and bring her up on the bed so she can't grab the phone. And then the one ghost reaches over, grabs the phone, and he's like, help us. And like, why as a collective ghost unit are you pulling the one living person that is trying to get help away from the device that's going to help you, and then you reach over and you grab the thing and you give it to her? I was like, this is a huge waste of time. I was like actually frustrated during this point of the movie. I was like, are you kidding me?
Frustrated? That was like one of the best scenes in the movie.
It was. And then they ruined it because the ghosts are like, yeah, we need help, dude. Can you call? Well, actually, we changed our mind.
Let the ghost a hand.
Yeah, please.
I think narratively, the reason that happened was basically to tell us, like, as the audience, hey, yeah, Sandy murdered all these people, but they're all a bunch of fuckers. You know what I mean? And I think that was why their ghosts were so demented, was because their lives were also demented. It's not like Sandy was killing like, you know, fucking like no big deal people. Like she was murdering people that were traumatizing her, right? Like she feels justified. And Eloise in some way, whether you agree with it as the audience member or not, Eloise in some way kind of is like, I'm sorry that, you know, your life was so shitty that you started murdering people. Like I feel so bad for you, but also like you fucking murdered a bunch of people and you poisoned me. Mm-hmm. And so like we're not on buddies. The same. Yeah. We're not buddies here. I get you. I feel you. I hear you. But also to the ghost.
150 fucking ghosts.
But then she goes and talks to the ghost, and she's like, there's a specific scene, was the one you're talking about, where he's holding the phone. And they're like, kill her, you have to kill her, avenge us. And she like looks at the ghost and she's like, no. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'd probably tell those ghosts to fuck off too. Like, I didn't really like them.
You tell ghosts to fuck off, man.
They really could have come out a little sooner and easier than just screaming out of the whole movie. You know what I mean? But that's movie stuff, though. They do this all the time. Stuff. I mean, I love The Sixth Sense, but it would have been a lot easier if someone had just fucking really. Instead of scaring this poor kid the whole time, they could have just said what they wanted. Hey, can you help us?
Yeah. Well, they didn't.
Why
know
take
how.
the whole movie to do this?
Well, they didn't.
That's the excuse
that's the thing
of the movie. That's the excuse of the movie.
That's exactly what Daryl's saying. It's
that's what I'm mad about it. I get it. It's movie stuff because no movie would ever think about all the shit in your life has never happened just because someone, hey, dude, don't go over there. That's a bad thing that could happen. And you're like, oh shit, thanks, bro. Movie done.
Yeah.
In the movies, no one tells you. Or they tell you and you don't listen, and you go jump in the axe murderer's arms. You know what I mean? Happens in movies all the time. And that's a big complaint. Like I talk about all the time about how much more sophisticated audiences are now. So we watch movies constantly where it's just people making stupid decisions after stupid they wouldn't make in real life. They're just doing it to propel the film. And that's why it's problem with most horror films, honestly, is they will always run towards the danger to make the movie keep happening.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, when I see a horror movie that's rated at like 70%, I know, right? I would have dealt with the ghosts. Whenever I see a movie that's rated at like a horror movie that's rated at like 60 to 70%, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. And then I'll watch it. I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good. You know, and then you kind of forgive all the bullshit that happens. Although in this movie, I think it was the idea and the concept was too smart, where all the dumb bullshit brought it down. You know, where I was hoping for Edgar Wright, who wrote this thing,
Right.
and directed it, and it was his idea. You know, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of that Edgar Wright sense that is in a lot of these movies, of like kind of like weird worldly common sense that the main characters have no idea. Like they're extremely naive, but you as an audience member are like very like Shaun of the Dead is a great example. They tell you so many times that the zombie apocalypse is happening right in front of your face, and all the characters are like, this dude's drunk, look at this, let's mess with him, you know.
Great.
Yeah.
So yeah, Shaun of the Dead is on my list of perfect films. I love that film, and I think this is Edgar Wright's biggest problem, and problems like a lot of directors like him, where he out at the gate made an amazing movie and it can't top it, you know. And he's like that's one thing about this movie too. It was beautiful. It was expertly shot. The acting was great. The editing was fucking fantastic. Everything about it was great. But it's like, I feel like, because Hot Fuzz is just okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz is fantastic. Hot Fuzz is a perfect film in my opinion.
It's okay. The one where they go to the pubs is okay.
That one's okay. That one's not a great one.
That and Hot Fuzz might be the same movie to me, is what it feels like. Baby Driver was okay, you know.
Baby Driver's a 9 out of 10 to me.
But to me, Shaun of the Dead is I mean, Doug, how many times have you fucking seen it? A billion fucking times.
I mean, everybody has, yeah.
It's just that good. It's like I said, it's on my list of perfect films. That and E.T.
Well, I think, and you know, it's of course it's your opinion and whatever you think, but
of course,
this is why you also think that. Well, you do think this is your opinion that Wes Anderson's best movie was the first one that you saw, which is Darjeeling Limited. Whereas
I still love it.
I think that the Grand Budapest Hotel that's my favorite movie of his. You know. Whereas in this case, like I think Edgar Wright is his best movie is probably Shaun of the Dead, but my favorite movie of his is Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim is another movie that I really like, but man, we need to chop this thing down. It's just getting too long. You know, we got the joke, we got what's going on, just chop it down. But speaking of Wes Anderson, the reason why I like Darjeeling Limited so much, because as much as I like his style, it's the least Wes Anderson-y of all of his films. I think it's the most grounded. I think it's got the most heart. It's got the best story. Where although, and I love what Wes Anderson likes. His movies are great. And I even like the really expensive C movie that no one likes that all that much. I really like
Steve Zissou.
Yeah,
Steve Zissou's great. I thought it was fucking great. But all his films are like that, right? Tenenbaums, everything. They have that very Wes Anderson thing going on. But the Darjeeling Limited it's got heart. It's sad at times. It's, you know, it's got great characters. This connection between the brothers is fantastic. They couldn't be any more different, you know. But no, so I don't know even what the fuck my point was at this point was. Edgar Wright's like the super talented guy. I almost feel like at this point he's a super talented director. I feel like someone else should take the wheel for writing, and he should be doing other people's stories. I feel like I think he's blown his load, and he's very good. That's another problem. He's very good at doing, like Wes Anderson's very good at doing Wes Anderson type movies, and Edgar Wright is very good at doing Edgar Wright type movies. And if he does anything else, it doesn't quite work. But he's a super talented guy. I wish maybe he'd just do other people's work and just
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that. I mean, this movie is definitely a lot. This movie holds together a lot better than, you know, the M. Night Shyamalan saga of terror movies.
Yeah, I think I compare Edgar Wright, because Edgar Wright he hasn't made anything terrible. Where M. Night Shyamalan has made some fucking stinkers, man.
Yeah. No,
which makes you wonder how much. Well, I mean, even The Sixth Sense, there was a lot of involvement from other parties. He had Frank Marshall as a producer, so he wasn't just allowed to be M. Night Shyamalan. And when he had no one telling him, "Hey, this is fucking stupid, dude."
This might be a hot take, but I think one of M. Night Shyamalan's better movies is actually Signs.
I love Signs.
I like Signs very much.
I think Signs
I really like Signs.
I personally I like Signs better than Sixth Sense, but I think that Pete, I don't know. It
I even
feels
like The Village. I even like The Village. It's not
Village's
great,
good.
but I
The
like
Village. I think was the first time when people were like, "Oh, he's like the twist guy." Like Sixth Sense had that big twist, and then like you could construe a twist out of Unbreakable. Is that what's called?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
guess so.
Mr. Glass turns out to be like a
The bad
dude in a
guy.
wheelchair.
Yeah.
And
But
you're
he's
like, yeah, and he's the opposite of it. And it's like, oh my gosh, you were my mentor, but you're actually the dude that's like fucking that caused the crane crash that turned me into Unbreakable in the first place.
No, the biggest twist in that movie was actually when Bruce Willis found out that he was a superhero at the age of 43. That's
Never
the biggest
knew.
twist. Could you
That's
fucking
pretty
imagine?
twist.
That'd be
Pretty big
insane,
Yeah, his kid
dude.
puts everything in the kitchen sink, and he puts the entire house on his barbells. And then the first time he realized he's strong, I like too when he's like, "Is it any coincidence that you're in security?" He's a security guard. It's like he's a cop or something. It's like he's FBI. That would have made more sense.
This implication that security guards are going around lifting heavy things.
Well, it's the fatal flaw.
Besides
It's the fatal
beers.
flaw of that film because I really liked what's the name of the movie again?
Unbreakable?
Unbreakable at first, but then as it progressed, I'm like, well, hold on. I mean, this guy would have figured this.
Yeah,
he
Fridge
would have figured it
Logic
out by
kills
now.
that movie for sure.
Exactly. But and then pretty much everything else.
Well, that's why I think The Village is the first movie where he really earned the reputation of being the twist guy.
Well, that's what he is, the twist guy, and I love a twist, so I'm the twist guy too. So that's why.
But the problem with being the twist guy, it's like the problem with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was reading about this recently. Did you know that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the whole point of that story, like the plot of the story, is that you don't know that they're the same person. It's basically Fight Club, but in the 1800s. And like now, because everybody knows about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like it doesn't work anymore as a story. Fundamentally, you can't like retell Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because there's no mystery. Everybody knows Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are the same person. And so the plot doesn't work. And that's why Fight Club is like a good retelling of that because they didn't use the same names. But like
Ooh,
that's
like every
Fight Club did.
That's like
but I
every
think that
story.
I think you run into the same. I think
Change
you
the
run into the
names.
same problem, right? Once you're M. Night Shyamalan, I think you run into the same problem where it's like I'm the twist guy. Like the biggest twist I could do now is to have a movie that just plays it straight, and then he fucking writes like Lady in the Water or whatever.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. So like everybody's gonna expect a
they're all-
twist. So like, how can you put a twist in a movie anymore?
You can't.
And,
That's
then
the
when
problem,
you don't, people get upset because they're expecting a twist, and so your whole career tumbles, and you fucking make an Avatar movie, and you fade into obscurity.
And I feel so bad for M. Night, as I call him. When we go to Philly and have a cheesesteak or whatever. The guy is obsessed with Philadelphia, isn't he? Because you're right. His problem is because he became the twist guy. Now he's put himself in a fucking corner.
Right.
It's very few directors can have true longevity. A lot of guys blow their load their first movie, and then that's it. And a lot of times, again, first movies, there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of producers involved. Quality producers. Like even Spielberg on Jaws, he wasn't just left to his devices. You know what I mean? He was surrounded by.
They couldn't leave him to his devices because none of them worked.
Exactly.
Nice. Very nice.
But he still had Robert Shaw with him. He still had Dreyfuss with him. He had Scheider with him. These incredibly talented guys who they sat around all night, worked on the movie, right? Because the shark didn't fucking work. If he didn't have those guys, that movie wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah.
Not in the shark movie,
I will say that Edgar Wright's ability to write snappy dialogue still shined, I think, in this movie. There's a couple points where one of my favorite scenes that's like very Edgar Wright moment. It almost feels like he put it in there just to like be like, yeah, it's an Edgar Wright movie. Was when when Eloise is sitting at the bar drinking whiskey, and then she looks at the old bartender who's like, turning into something of like a maternal figure in her life, and she's like, "Do you believe in spirits?" And the lady's like, "Of course I believe in spirits.
Yeah,
they make me all kinds of money."
Yeah.
Whatever the joke was. Excuse me, Jesus.
Yeah, I thought that
Another
was
cigarette.
That was really that was just cherry on top. Didn't take me out of the movie. I giggled at it as soon, like it took me a second to get it. Once I got it, I giggled at it, and I was like, yeah. That's what I want to feel when I watch an Edgar Wright movie. But
Well,
obviously this movie doesn't have space for that kind of shit.
And I talk about this all the time too when we do the podcast. And I think the other problem is too is this is how do you do anything originally these days? I mean, like when the big boom of independent film going on the amateur level, especially when DSLRs first came out, everybody in them, like you could watch YouTube and Vimeo and everything. Everybody had a fucking short movie where the guy was two people in one. I mean, so you saw that 1,000 fucking times. Ghost stories have been done at this point time and time again. How do you make an original ghost story at this point? You can't.
Yeah. Well, I wanted this.
So this is part of the problem, right? As especially now we've had The Ring, which was original back when it came out, but it was also but it was well done and we never saw it coming, kind of thing. And you have, of course, The Changeling, 1981, George C. Scott, best ghost movie ever made. But there's been, and it's a problem with it's like when Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in 74, whatever the fuck that is. Yeah, a bunch of kids getting in a van and going somewhere and getting chased around by a chainsaw guy had never happened before. Now, every fucking horror film you see is a bunch of kids going to the woods or something. So that's part of our problem too, is like, how do you make something that's Cabin in the Woods is a prime example of the last really original idea for a horror film.
And it wasn't even
made fun of it the whole time.
Yeah, it wasn't even like that. It's the same thing. Instead of being an actual horror movie, it's more of a parody.
Yeah, which is what it did, which was unique, that made
which
it
saved it. Which is really weird, but it was still the same story almost.
But it did manage to capture like, it
had its own originality. Oh yeah, of course.
It had like the eldritch horror at the end, which is like the real kick in the balls, where it's like and the main character deciding to end humanity. Fucking hubris of that. But I think you're right that it's hard to make something that's original. I feel like this felt original enough. I mean, if you're gonna make the movie that I wanted it to be is not the movie that it turned out to be, because I didn't, like you guys know, I don't watch trailers or anything. So all I knew was that Anya Taylor-Joy and Eloise at some point look at each other in a mirror, implying that they're somehow the same person. And I was like, I literally want to know nothing more.
The trailer, thank God, never gave away anything, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It gave away nothing. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even know this was a fucking ghost movie going into it, and I'd seen the trailer.
But
I knew some kooky shit was going on, but
yeah, I felt the same.
I thought
way.
it was some time travel bullshit. I didn't know it was a ghost story.
So I didn't even think it was time travel. So I didn't know that Anya Taylor-Joy was in the 60s, or maybe I thought the whole movie took place in the 60s. I thought that they were concurrently living. What I thought I was going to go watch was a shy girl who like has like a mental breakdown and then leaves her house every night to become this ultra confident girl. And then those two personalities discovering each other at some point and like basically ending up at odds with each other. That's what I thought the conflict of the movie was going to be. Like a completely different film from what I watched.
Oh, so like a kind of like just like a regular comedy movie.
A comedy movie? No, I thought this was going to be a psychological horror where you realize that like you have a mental problem where there's multiple people inside of your body. One of them is going out and doing drugs and getting fucked up every night, and the other one is trying to be a nerdy, quiet kid in school. Like
that
and
wouldn't
they
have
discover
worked
each other.
Is because of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Well, if they had named Anya Taylor-Joy Hyde,
Yeah,
then I would have had a fucking problem with it.
Well, if they named it, if Eloise was actually named Tyler Durden. See,
the good old tale of Tyler Durden and Dr. Jekyll. Or what?
Dr. Jekyll and Tyler Hyde. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Durden Hyde.
That's what I thought I was going to go see. So this was not that, and honestly, I don't think I've seen anything that was quite like this. Maybe when Marnie was there.
This was not that.
Have you guys ever seen When Marnie Was There? It's like a story about a depressed girl that goes to like a fucking summer town in Japan. It's a Miyazaki film. It's not a Miyazaki film. It's a Studio Ghibli film that's directed by somebody else.
Yeah.
But she basically goes, and because she's such a little fucking shithead because she's depressed, nobody, like, she can't make friends with anybody. But then she meets this girl who she can make friends with, and then they get along really well. But then it turns out that girl is actually like the spirit of her time traveling grandmother or something like that.
Ah, yes.
And it's like
That is a
and
Studio Ghibli film.
Yes.
it's
Old
like
time traveling grandma.
but the,
Spirit
but the
of.
point
Seen that a million
yeah.
times.
My point is simply that it feels like that. Like that is the closest thing that I've seen to a movie like this. Obviously, it's filled with tropes that you expect to see in psychological horror and also coming of age stories for young women where they're the different girl. That's like very commonly used. But in general, I don't think I've seen a lot of movies that are like this. So it's unique enough in terms of like the actual plot. Maybe not the tropes, but the plot. That's my
I guess you never seen The Lake House, where they're separated by time and
Keanu
living through
Reeves
their
and
letters.
Sandra Bullock.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Is that a love story?
yeah.
Sort of.
So what's wrong with love stories? What do you like love stories?
I wouldn't call that love.
Or I mean, that's like saying Your Name is the same thing. That's not even Studio Ghibli. That's just another anime film.
But that's also where they're connected. A couple years apart. It's
yeah,
the,
they're years
that's a
apart.
good movie.
Yeah,
And
then it turns out she died in an asteroid, and then he
in the asteroid thing.
but
Yeah.
through communicating with her in the past, he
It's a good
saves
movie.
the town from the asteroid.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
huh.
Anything with asteroids, I'm in. But two,
And Bruce
Oh, yeah,
Willis
Dana, you
leads a
haven't seen that
team
movie?
to
dude, it's
blow
a
up.
good.
Made
Me and
out
Amber
for you.
watched it. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Amber said
It's
we got to
actually-
watch this.
It's
really
brutal
good.
because it starts as a body swapping drama like Freaky Friday, but
Mhm.
they fall in love with each other because they like write notes to each other when they're in each other's bodies, and they're like writing notes, and they kind of like start to develop this like really meaningful connection. And then they decide to meet up, and they choose a date, and he drives to her town, and it's just a big fucking hole in the ground.
I feel like you should like
ruin.
I feel like you should like start out with that. He kind of got catfished. Could you imagine? You know?
Well, she didn't know.
No, yeah, but in the movie, dude, it is one of the most gut-wrenching moments when
It
you
is.
realize that it's they're a couple years diverged. And so when he gets to her house, it's just a big fucking crater, and there's some smarmy old guy that's like, "Oh yeah, remember when that
Happened years
asteroid
ago.
destroyed that town?
And
That
killed
was
that
it."
girl.
Killed that girl you're in love with. I think
Dude.
that's her skeleton hand over there. In fact,
It's a real kick in the balls,
dude, it is. The movie fucking was a gut punch, dude.
Oh
It's
man,
really
I
good.
cried like a
It's
bitch
really
when
good.
that-
Yeah, I was
no,
gonna say, man, it was fucking.
I was so sad.
It's a good movie. So
It's very
What's it
good
called?
movie.
Your
I would
Name?
watch it. Your Name, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And the English dub is actually pretty good. So
Yeah.
I thought this was the plot to Lake House. Disappointing.
It sort of is. It sort of is the plot to Lake House.
Well,
Nah, I've
Keanu
never
Reeves
seen
does
I'd
look
watch,
like
I'd
he's
watch
been
any
dubbed.
movie where an asteroid hits Sandra Bullock.
Isn't that well? You should see Gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same.
God damn, bring it back.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I guess I don't know. I didn't really feel like I had as strong expectations. I felt immediately like it wasn't going to be a standard Edgar Wright film just because it doesn't start the way. Well, I guess that's not true. She's dancing in that newspaper dress. That's pretty Edgar Wrighty.
Yeah.
And like the
Yeah.
going off to college was not Edgar Wrighty at all. It was very much like every other indie kind of, coming of age story, I thought.
Yeah, I wanted to. What I was kind of expecting is, and maybe visual directors kind of do this. Like Wes Anderson. You go to watch a Wes Anderson movie, you expect to see some crazy
Primary
weird
colors.
shit. Yeah, you want to see all that stuff.
Kooky stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you go and watch an Edgar Wright movie, you kind of want to get the same thing. I got that with Baby Driver.
Yeah,
I
me
did
too.
like that movie a lot, and it's not the you get a lot of the crazy transitions is what Edgar Wright's really really good at. He's really good at holding your attention during a scene, and especially moving out of that scene into a different one. And I feel like they didn't really do that a whole lot here. You're talking about very specific points, Ben, and I think and I agree with that too. Is like when you're watching, you're like, oh yeah, that's an Edgar Wright movie like thing, and it kind of took me out of it. I kind of wanted to I was very interested, and I was talking about Brent with this too. I was very interested to watch a psychological horror movie that was completely done in his visual style. That's kind of, I was very excited to watch, and because even if it was the exact same story, maybe I would have liked it a little bit better if it was told in his very unique way. But
It was played. It
was played very low, which
it wasn't very Edgar Wright-ish style, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of unfair to say, because like, he's definitely made this a thing. Like when you're going to watch an Edgar Wright movie, you kind of expect something out of it. So what if he doesn't want to do that? Which maybe that makes me think that what this movie is maybe trying to do, maybe he was trying to be a little less Edgar Wrighty, and just kind of just have like he's just like, dude, it's too much fucking work. I just want to like set up a camera, hit record, shoot the scene, or stop recording, and then switch.
Maybe that Edgar Wright-ish stuff doesn't translate. Have you ever tried to like you ever wrote a song and then you're like, I want to like put this song in a completely different genre from what I originally wrote it in, and then you're just like, oh, this song just does not work in that genre at all. Like I would have to you'd have to change so much of it that like it just doesn't work. Maybe that's what happened with Edgar Wright here. Maybe he tried to write an Edgar Wright film and film it that way, and then on the cutting board, he was like, wow, this film doesn't work the way that I thought I was going to do it. I have to I have to play it more straight.
Like when I was saying that Denis Villeneuve is not a sci-fi guy.
Oh yeah.
Edgar Wright is not a.
He's not a horror movie.
Edgar Wright. And this is the problem.
You are literally correct when you say that about Edgar Wright. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. When musicians, bands fall in the same guy. Like Radiohead's a prime example of, if they just kept doing what they did on the Bends, I would have loved it, but it also would have gotten old pretty quickly, because then they would have become a giant one-trick pony. And even though they went in a different direction with OK Computer, and I hated it, I understand why they did it. Because you can't just keep doing the same fucking thing all over and over again. And there's a problem when you have a very distinct visual style like Edgar, or just style period like Edgar Wright or Wes Anderson. Like Wes Anderson, you're watching a Wes Anderson film when you're watching a Wes Anderson film. What if he doesn't do that? You get the Darjeeling Limited, which I love, and is probably his least loved film because it's not very Wes Anderson-y. It is, but not in the same way as other ones are.
I will say for this movie, though, I think it is a little unfair to say that Edgar Wright wasn't able to flex his masterful. I always think of it like cinematography, but I guess it is like transitions and stuff.
Oh, it's beautiful. This was excellently done.
And the horror scenes, I think, now that I'm like thinking back on it, the actual moments of like Nightmare World are super, super well done and very like, like if they were set to upbeat music, like they would feel very zany, like everything else that he's done. Because there's like a scene where she's running down the alleyway and the whole camera just like flips completely over. And then like the scene transition is her stepping in a puddle where she's upside down in the puddle reflection, but she's like still running past the camera. Like that is just fucking, great idea for a transition. And then also the whole thing where she's climbing up the staircase and every time she's like looking back, like the old lady's turning into Anya Taylor-Joy, and then she's like in this fucking weird ethereal floating staircase thing made out of glass and all that shit. And it's like, and then she gets into the hell room and all the fucking hands, like all that stuff editing wise, I think only enhanced the experience. Like that stuff was just fucking mind bending, and probably if it was a different genre would have felt very Edgar Wright. But a lot of the straight scenes, a lot of like the normal stuff, especially like where she's researching in the library. Yeah, that's played like straight horror. That it's quiet. She's in the library, and flicking through the thing. And the guy touches her. She's like, ah!
And this is and this is not a slight against the film at all, but this is horror light for sure.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I think that was him stepping into something else. Again, like I'm saying, this is tough when you try to change what you do and what you're well known for, especially at Edgar Wright. You're gonna run in this kind of thing where maybe you just can't do it. Like I said, back to the Dune guy. I think Prisoners is a fucking fantastic film. I love the fucking Mexican violent one.
Oh, Sicario. That's a great
Sicario's
movie.
Great. Sicario's fucking
Second one
great.
is also very, very good. Second one is fantastic.
Which I haven't seen yet, but
fantastic.
That's, to me, is what he's good at. And even though he's in love with sci-fi, I don't think he's good at it. I think he's okay. He's just okay at it. Because all this stuff, for me,
Blade
all the sci-fi stuff,
it's great.
I don't think his Blade Runner was that great. It's just not. I think it's a guy who's in love with Blade Runner is what we got. And I think his Abbott has Death Process or whatever movie also didn't do it for me. It was cool. It was beautiful. It was cool looking.
Abbott?
Well, you're in
Arrival.
your rival. You're in love with
Yeah,
Amy
the
Adams.
Arrival,
You can't
man,
see
I
past
still-
Amy Adams
bro.
is fantastic.
They didn't love her. I don't blame
She's-
you.
It was
I
a
can't-
Jeremy
Right.
Renner is a piece of paper that they're animating. He's so flat, and it's
Yeah,
just
he was kind
the
of.
whole movie is just
He's not.
ridiculous.
Yeah, he's not the point of the
But
story
have
at
you
all.
have you
It's
seen
like,
her
oh.
in Heavenly Creatures? She's fucking fantastic in it. She's so good. She carries that whole fucking movie.
Arrival
haven't
is
actually.
so fucking.
You know, Heavenly
good, though.
Creatures. Of course you have. Not Heavenly Creatures. What's the one we like? Like by the designer Tom Ford. Not Heavenly
Oh,
Creatures.
right.
Oh, Nocturnal
Will
Animals.
Smith.
Nocturnal
Yeah,
Animals.
that
Heavenly
movie.
Creatures
Love
is
that
a television.
movie. Yeah.
Nocturnal.
Oh,
like I said,
Nocturnal
she-
Animals. Wait, that's
Yeah.
not Denis Villeneuve, is it?
No,
No. I
It's Tom
was
Ford.
saying Amy, it's Amy
it's
Adams.
Amy Adams
She-
though.
She's fantastic in it. And
Yeah,
She does
that
not
movie
carry
is
that film.
So good though.
Jake
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal
that's
carries that
true.
film. No, Jake
Mr.
Gyllenhaal
Gyllenhaal.
is like he's kind of
That-
you know
that
what? Actually, it
movie
is. It's
is-
Tom Ford. Tom Ford fucking carries that film because Jake Gyllenhaal
Yeah, it's
isn't
a
even
good
in the
movie.
modern scenes.
See, so speaking of which, like that movie, the reason why I love that movie so much is it's a different take on a revenge story. You know what I mean? It totally, and we have this main character who's not a badass and fights to try to be one, which I love is about that. He's more like a normal guy that got put in this horrible situation. And I was talking about this with somebody who worked the other day. It's like
Uh-oh.
we all would love to think that if we were put into a situation where we had to defend fight life and limb and kill someone if we had to and everything, that we would be able to kill someone, but most people cannot. It happens all the time where
That's
people
really
just
inter-
can't
yeah,
kill
oh,
someone. Even a
yeah.
bad person, they can't kill them.
Were we talking about? Did we do Nocturnal Animal on this podcast?
We did. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember specifically having the conversation of like I thought that scene was really realistic, and I remember Jeremy was like, "I would have stabbed the guy," and I was like,
Jeremy, the thing is if Jeremy was there as Jeremy, he absolutely would have stabbed that guy.
He had
I know,
a
and
butterfly.
that's-
He would have had a butterfly knife.
Yeah,
and I
Jeremy has
realized
knives.
in that moment. Yeah, I realized in that moment that I was like, Jeremy probably would have stabbed the guy.
No, that's
I don't
what-
think
that's
I
what-
would have stabbed the guy.
That's what I remember. We were having an entire conversation about this where you were saying like, no, he wouldn't. But no, if Jeremy was Jeremy in that moment, he absolutely would have killed all three of those people. If we were in the car and he was like had to defend us or something like that, Jeremy would have gone ham. But no, I mean, you get put in this situation very slightly. I'm absolutely the same way. I'm very defensive of people. Ace is actually the same way. Remember our buddy Ace? There was a time where this dude was getting way too drunk when we were at the Oasis, and he was getting way too he just basically like inserted himself into our conversation. And Ace is just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And he was like, Ace is like 3 feet tall, like stood up to like fight this dude,
Jeez.
just because he was just like, being a little bit too invasive. He's been defensive of his friends.
Yeah, Ace
Dude
definitely
was weird. Dude was like freaking us out. And so Ace was like, all right, I'll do something about this. So it really depends on the people. Dad, you're definitely right. I don't think if I was ever in a situation where it was just like me against this one person and I had to kill them, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But if I had to defend somebody else that I really, really cared about against somebody, not necessarily killing them, I would absolutely do everything in my power to do. So,
Well, if it was one of your kids, I wouldn't even think about it. Something else is always
yeah,
taken
see,
over.
So
But that's different. But if it was me, I'd probably get killed.
I would probably get killed too. I would probably get killed too.
Because
I'd
if
be
it
like,
was
you know
either
what?
me or
I mean,
them-
what am I even protecting here, dude?
Because
What
I know
is-
that I would
what is
just
this?
feel really bad about killing even a bad person,
Mhm.
But it happens all the time where somebody, even if they're armed, will not be able to even pull the gun out and shoot someone because it's just not in them. It's not, like I said, we'd all like to think that we would be that guy, but very few people are. It's very hard to, and I think that's one thing that Nocturnal Animals that I love so much explores, which makes it original.
Well, it's really interesting too
in a very
because-
unoriginal world.
Yeah, it's such a it's very interesting in the
I don't know, we're
Nocturnal
not-
Animals situation because it is it's a book that she's reading, and the book not only is it like a very realistic thing, which is like totes to the writers of the movie, but then it's also like totes to the writers of the thing. And also she broke up with him because he never really found his bearings as a writer, and it turned out all she needed to do was make him feel like shit so that he could write a book that was basically a big fuck you to her, and then it was the best thing he ever wrote. And it's like that is some pretty fucking intricate
it's
like here's how we got here. By the way, this
Heavily
whole
layered.
story, yeah.
Yeah.
Dating you was like having 3 men accost me on the highway and murder my wife and daughter. And then when I went to go fix the problem, I ended up dying. That's what being with you was like.
This is, I know we got a sort of away from the movie we're talking about, but this is what I like about Whiplash. Because Whiplash asked the exact same question. Like, can you be great unless you are tortured by a bald guy that throws a cymbal at you and yells at you about his timing?
It was a chair. It was based on the guy who threw a cymbal at his team.
Yeah, but I mean, but they even talk about it, man, and stuff like that. He bros down with him and stuff before he sets him up for the end of the movie when he becomes great. It's so powerful, but it's a great question to ask. It's like when he tells that girl, I can't be with you anymore because you will distract me and I need to do, you know what I mean? It's all this stuff. And it's a great question. It's like, can you truly be great without being 100% challenged, broken down, and recreated by this situation you've put in? Because that's what that teacher believes, and it's true for some people and not true for others. You know what I mean? That's
I always thought the question of like in Whiplash was, and maybe this is just a personality thing. I always thought the question in Whiplash was basically the same thing you're saying, Daryl, but more specifically, like, is it worth it to become great?
That's why I like the complexity of that film. It's asking that too. It's like, is it worth it? Is it worth your life?
Is manufactured trauma, which the movie posits is a requirement of greatness, is manufactured trauma worth becoming great at something? It's a very fascinating conversation to have.
And those are all questions up to the individual viewer, or the answers rather, because it asks those questions. It's like, well, it's up, because everyone's going to feel a different way about it. Some people are going to say, absolutely, it's worth it. It's worth it. And other people are going to say, there's no fucking way it's worth your life, relationships, being miserable just to be great.
Well, Last Night in Soho asks a pretty important question too, which is if you could God damn it, I had too many options and they overwhelmed me at once. I was gonna say, like, if you were chased by an old lady with a knife, would it be scary? Or if you could be Anya Taylor-Joy and be super hot and get fucked by Jack from Doctor Who, would that be
I would not want to be fucked by Matt Smith.
Or if you could
you're still going.
I got overwhelmed, man. I was like, which one is the best one to say? Oh fuck!
You know what helped this movie too is Diana Rigg was perfectly cast.
Oh my god!
It was her last film too. Mm-hmm. But I think you were talking about earlier, Ben, about how do you make an old lady scary? You hire a powerful actress like Diana Rigg.
Yeah, you hire a scary old lady
who pulled it off. You pulled it off. Who can be imposing. And also be a doddering old lady living in the downstairs.
She also has some of the best lines.
Yes, I was gonna say I love that moment too, where she's getting chased up the stairs and then she kicks the old lady and the old lady falls because she's an old fucking lady. Like, of course, if you kick her, she's gonna fall down.
Yeah. Well, she did turn into a woman with a wig.
They should have
every time I kick an old lady, they fall down.
Instead. By the way,
that would have been good. Yeah, if she was.
She could have done my old grumpy grandma and would have been perfect.
So, but the very end of this movie, I think, was my favorite part of it, but especially that part where Sandy's basically being forced to relive her crimes, and the older lady version of her is like, oh, I haven't actually thought about that in years, and you're right in a way. Somebody did die up there, and it was my old life and like what I had in store for myself. And come to think of it, I died over 100 times in that room, and I was like, oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
that was a good line. Yeah. But it wasn't like profound or like amazing, but it was the way that Diana Rigg delivered it, where it was kind of like an offhand thing. It's like as if she knew it her entire life, and she's just like casually mentioning it to somebody. Yeah, it wasn't like I died over 100 times in that room, like you've seen in so many movies. It's just like she was just kind of like realizing something. It was the way that she delivered it. The pace of the reveal was
expert, and also the way the cinematography changes. Also, like, as it's becoming apparent that she is a serial killer, and like, it's like they like do these like really weird depth of field effects with the camera. Nothing is in Scream is like fisheye, but like I remember the last shot is just on her and she's in the middle of the thing, and like the frame is like kind of bending outwards, and it makes her seem like really like far away even though she's right there, and you're like, and she's just saying it into the camera at that last moment, like, yeah, I'm the one who fucking murdered all these people. I was like, I am afraid of this old woman.
You know what?
I am afraid of the elderly.
This movie also, I want to see more horror movies that have more color. I absolutely
this
do.
is a very colorful horror
It
film.
was
That's
so colorful. Like, I really like how it wasn't just like, just the regular old, like the green drab color grade that they throw on it and call it a day.
Shot anamorphically.
I did notice that. I thought they were doing a trick there when they were in the 60s. It was anamorphic.
I was asking the same question.
Yeah, it's like that would have been so good because vintage. Okay,
I
60s.
thought that was cool.
Then,
Like at first, I thought they were shooting spherical in
modern,
and then anamorphic and I would have been, oh, that would have been such a great effect.
That would have been.
Turns
really
out
cool.
it was all anamorphic, but they were gorgeous. Especially, it seemed like it was more prevalent in the 60s though. The beautiful
that's what I was thinking too. That's when I noticed it. Yeah, I think
me too. I started
it
noticing it too. I'm like, well, maybe they're shooting with two different sets of lenses.
It's probably
but I think it would
got
be a good
something
idea.
to do with the way the lighting was done in the 60s, because the lighting in the 60s is very, very different and vibrant and like.
The difference here too is the tone.
A lot of hard lighting.
Yeah, a lot of hard lighting, and it's very warm. Whereas in the modern day, it was all like when you notice, and also everything during the 60s was at night, and everything in the modern times was during the day, and it was overcast, so it was very blue.
If you think about the Halloween party, and you think about like all the time they spend in the clubs in the 60s, like it does feel very, very different, even though both of those things are essentially like a dance.
Similar environments.
Yeah, similar environments. And so I feel like I don't know exactly how they managed to do that, but you know that you're not in the 60s at the Halloween party based off of the lighting alone.
Well, no, it has a lot to. This is all like behind the scenes stuff, where it's just like you have a good like gaffers and stuff and people who know how to light.
Right.
That's it's because you can do so much with lighting to evoke tone and emotion, and so that's where all that kind of comes into play. And so they were going for a very specific emotion for the actual look of the scene, and so they're going to light it a certain way, and so you don't notice it. It's super behind this. Like, I don't even understand it, but it's just like that you're in a different time period because of the way that they made you feel like it's very much on purpose. It's not by accident. It's like, they use these halogen bulbs in the 60s, so we're going to use those. Like, it's, and then they use fluorescent in modern day, so we're going to use those. It's like a very, specific choice. So yeah, you're totally right. It's like, there's something.
They
did
definitely
this in all these movies.
They crushed the tone of I think we've said a bunch about the aesthetic of the film. They fucking crushed the aesthetic of the film. The plot, I tend to agree, does leave a little bit to be desired. Like, it could have been done better, but from my perspective, man, what a fucking engaging thriller. I felt pretty helpless as her. Like, once things really kicked off and she was being chased by ghosts everywhere, I was like, oh yeah, dude, you're fucked. There's no coming back from this. Like, you can't even fucking interact with reality. Like,
I think that's the real question here.
What?
That's the question. It was a reference to nocturnal animals. Daryl,
yeah, come on.
that movie
up. Sorry, I'm running out of gas here. We got to end this thing. So
I think we're about ready.
I worked a long day. Like I said, I just barely made it on. So
well, let's jump on to ratings. Daryl, you go first.
I give it a 6. I kind of like this film, even all this shit. I didn't hate it or anything. I just feel it was like I'm always complaining about. It lacked some originality or whatever. I think we've seen this a lot, so it's tough to do. But it was beautiful, beautifully shot. I think it was well acted. I really liked at the end when we found out that she was a serial killer and killed apparently hundreds of guys, and they were in the walls and shit. Like, that kind of gave me this weird, creepy feeling. I was like, oh, I like this. I like that this is the answer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Again, I would have cut it about half an hour. As I say, it's almost every movie we watch. Everything needs to be just tightened up, man. Tighten this shit up. There's too much stuff. It just. Make the story, make the beats, get the story and get out of there. It's better than going, you know what I mean? It seems like everything's got to be 2 hours now, and I think it's better if you either tell the story and they're satisfied, or you want people to want more, instead of going, man, I wish I was long, because that we could say that about a lot of movies. But anyways, I give it a 6. I liked it. Again, I like the stuff like we're talking about. It's like. It was beautiful and it was fun to watch, kind of, and everything and stuff. But at the end of the day, when you leave, where you're like, fuck, that was great. You weren't. So, who cares how good the lyrics were? The music wasn't, the song wasn't great. So,
Yeah. Interesting.
I liked it,
You made something click for me just now where I was trying to figure out like where you would trim the fat. And I just realized like there wasn't really any reason for her to stab Jocasta or whatever the fuck that girl's name was
Yeah.
with scissors. She obviously doesn't do it, but like that like harms their relationship in a way that I think would be irreparable. But then at the end of the movie, she's kind of like, clapping.
It felt strange still, but yeah.
I feel like you could go to jail for attempted murder.
Yeah, it's pretty tough with that many witnesses.
What would that be?
It's England.
I mean,
that's true. It's Soho.
It just didn't need to happen. She also didn't need, like, she was already being chased by ghosts. Like, she didn't need to go to the library. She could have just been chased by ghosts into the end of the film. Like there was a little bit of fluff where like her whole life is being invaded by ghosts and she's like doing little things. Like it's like, you just fuck, dude. Like,
I think we got the point with all this extra shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's what I'm saying. Is like I would have trimmed up a lot of that fat because it didn't help the story and it makes you wonder if a movie like this where so many of the story elements are not original. I think it'd be better if we just told it and got out of there. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to drag it out like everybody fucking does all the time. When you don't need it. So
I think that for me, if I was going to cut 30 minutes out of the film, I would probably cut it from some of the like third act. I'm not being chased by ghosts anymore, so I'm gonna like go to the cops or whatever. It's like it would have been better if she went to the cops and then the cops, like the police station was filled with ghosts. Then she's like, fuck, and then she like gets out of there. And then she like goes to the library to like try to learn something, and then she gets chased by ghosts. She runs out of there. It's like, just make it faster. We don't need to breathe there. We need to get to the end.
We've already been breathing most of the movie, especially the intro. I mean, I would have cut out the cops. Like I said, I still don't think it did anything. I know it's to kind of to get it. Her confronting the old woman would have been enough for a reason to kill her. She didn't have to have the cops hot on her trail. I don't think we needed it. Personally, I would have cut out that. I would have cut out the whole library scene. I don't think it did anything. I think her going to the cops with this zero evidence made no sense either. I mean, even though she's having mental problems or whatever, seeing ghosts, what the fuck is going on? She's still got to know that going to the cops about a murder that happened that ended up being a vision. Right, because Sandy didn't get murdered, obviously.
Yeah, it was a vision.
It happened in the 60s. That just because some guy whose name you don't know, who's stumbling around and being weird in Soho, it just made no sense to go to the cops. It just felt like more filler. Oh, let's just get rid of it. Let's go to the library. Let's get to this fucking thing. We know what's going on.
One scene where she talks to her student counselor and doesn't connect with the student counselor.
And the student counselor says, "You're just being crazy." That's all that was.
Yeah,
that's
all we needed. We needed her to make a little bit of effort in trying to solve her problems with human tools as opposed to supernatural ones.
Because they do this in all these movies, right? Where they go to the cops or they go to this person and they laugh at her, or they yeah, okay, dearie, and then when she walks away, they're like, "That fucking psycho." They do this all the time, and
there was one thing before I get into my review that I wanted to ask about. When on the Halloween night, she does see Anya Taylor-Joy get stabbed, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that is an unfair.
Back to the rules.
Rules.
Back to the rules.
Yeah, that's unfair. Like that. It's just not how it happened. Like the vision should not have taken place that way. If we were going to do it, it should have been very cut up and like she was distracted by the guy that she had with her. So she should have misunderstood what she saw.
Yeah.
And then the reveal should have been that she misunderstood what she saw and she just didn't get it. Like, don't just show us something that didn't actually happen, because that's just unfair. That's not. Like,
it confuses the viewer, and like I said, it didn't. It's another red herring that didn't help us. I think it hurt the film.
It's like you're right. They're not playing. The writing wasn't playing by the rules that it established, and so of course we thought that something else happened because that's what the fucking rules told us.
Yeah.
So in that specific situation, I don't agree. But overall, for me, I think that the movie definitely held my attention. Was very gripping. It was the right amount of horror. It wasn't disgusting, but it was disturbing. And like, yeah, when shit started to go out of control, I felt like, yep, you're fucked. Like if that was happening to me, I'd give up. I'd just be like, yep, I'm fucked. I'm being chased by ghosts. Like, I don't know what
I'd be
the fuck
like,
to do.
just, where's the pills? Where's the quietest?
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Where's the old lady's tea?
Yeah.
Bring it
give me
now.
that. Oh, this will kill me?
Yeah. Can I have the whole pot?
Yeah. Oh shit,
Are
dude.
you gonna drink that?
But overall, I really enjoyed the film. I walked out of the theater feeling affected. I don't think I felt like the movie was incredible. I definitely had questions that, like, now having time to simmer on it, I take or leave a couple of things the movie did, but maybe part of it's just good movie theater experience. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. Although it's strong 7, light 8, I would say. Yeah,
Light
I
8.
enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I would watch it with a lady friend. Good time.
Nice.
That was the name.
Nothing puts
With
you
a-
in the mood.
And leave alone.
Yeah,
I'd watch it with a gal.
Yeah, nothing puts you in the mood like watching this woman get sold into horism.
Well, exactly. Now she can
Horrorism.
learn what it's
I don't
like.
know what it's called.
You said horrorism. Damn it!
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna talk
Prostitution.
about
That's what it is.
Yeah.
God, my joke was gonna be so bad. I thought you were talking about the girl like having a psychological meltdown, and so I was gonna be like, that's what it's like dating me. But I was just about to like implicate myself as a pimp or something. So never mind.
Yeah, never mind. Moving on.
Jesus.
Oh man, I'll go next. I actually, like, as soon as I walked out of the theater, I had my score in my mind. It was a 6. It still is a 6. So it's not as low as maybe I made it up to be, but no, 6. I think I got through everything I wanted to say. Oh, one thing though, if I ever ran out of anybody's room because they threw me into the mirror and I broke the mirror and I got glass shards in my feet, I probably would never talk to that person again.
Yeah, I think it's over.
You've never
Yeah.
dated a hot crazy girl, then.
I have,
Yeah.
but that hasn't really happened. And the thing is though too, I would also probably not be able to walk for quite some time after that. But he seemed pretty chipper the next day.
He's a quick healer.
He was a quick killer.
Well, maybe we'll see him in the next Wolverine movie. So 6, and there you go. That's all I got.
I am tempted. Overall, again, something like this needs to follow the rules, and it's just there's no question, no situation I can think of where you can break them and it's effective. It's just not in a situation like this. It needs to. I know that's kind of bad, but it needs to be kind of on rails, so that when some of this unexpected stuff does happen, we have kind of an anchor point to go through the film. I think this is one of my problems with it is the fact that it seems to miss that on a number of occasions. Overall, it's like I said, beautifully shot. I enjoyed watching it. And hell, I can't stand the music from the '60s, and didn't mind this so much.
Hot take.
So, what's that?
Hot take.
Hot take. I don't know what that is. So anyway,
That's when you have a bad opinion.
That's when you have an unpopular opinion.
Sorry,
okay.
that.
Yeah, hot take.
Doug thought maybe when he took a hot shit.
That was
I do take that.
actually as soon as we get off this, that's exactly what's happening.
Hot take time.
So
He's like, how did you know I was gonna have a hot take
overall,
after
I enjoyed the pace. Again, we could have used shorten stuff up to kind of quickly get to the point, because I think I would have had fewer problems with some of this stuff if it had just gotten to where it meant to go.
Yep.
Because a lot of that is you're spending all this extra time kind of hanging out, and when it breathes, that gives you an opportunity to go, well, what about this? What about
It makes you ask
And it was-
questions.
And
Yeah.
it was at those
That's
moments
very
where I
true.
started going, well, wait a minute, Sandy's not dead. Towards the end, I was like, well, how the hell did all this happen? I mean, I'm sure there's a logical story, and it's not that big of a deal. But overall, I think I'll give it a 5.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
I liked
fair.
it.
That's fair.
like I said, there seem to be some easily corrected problems throughout this film.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like they were so close. They were so
And
close.
I don't understand why they touched fingers. They did the girl version of fist bumping in the mirror when
Oh,
she
version
tried
of
to
That's
kill
just
him.
something?
because it's just because it's cute.
And okay, that's great, but
It just looks good.
she tried to kill her and her boyfriend, and so
Yeah, that is kind of
moving
weird.
on. Anyway,
Yeah.
She knows
I
the
was
true
just like,
story of
what?
this person.
So
I've always wanted to
they're
fist
gonna-
bump a serial killer.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well,
No,
they.
I know
Confidence
she
is back.
stabs the poor boyfriend and poisons homegirl.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
So
Well, it's the first time I've ever seen in a horror movie where the main character identified more with the serial killer than with the 150 dead people.
well, they were screaming at her.
Yeah,
They were
that's
being-
kind of
yeah,
too
that's
loud.
so annoying.
They're
Would you like
being
to
real
scream-
bitches about being dead.
Yeah, would you like to be screamed at by an old man or sang at by Anya
Absolutely
Taylor-Joy?
Taylor-Joy?
not. No, I don't want Matt Smith anywhere near me.
See? Thank you. Not
Right?
alone. Matt Smith is weird. But yeah, okay. I think that's it. Do we have any suggestions for next week?
Aren't we doing French Dispatch?
Another theater movie?
Oh,
I definitely
What,
wanted.
what about Antlers?
Oh fuck yeah! I've been.
Let's
It's
do
a
Antlers.
Guillermo del Toro
Yeah.
horror movie.
And I go. I want to go. I'll go to the theater for that motherfucker.
Is
go
Antlers
to-
a new horror movie?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It came out same time as Last Night in Soho.
Oh.
I have no idea if it's going to be any good, but the previous
I've been
in.
wanting to watch this movie for
I'll do
2 years. I saw the poster for it for like 2
2
years ago. It was a
years?
while ago.
No, it
I
sounds,
haven't
it sounds like an
seen-
interesting movie. It's a horror
Mhm.
film. Yeah, let's go see that.
I
And
don't think I've seen
I'm
any
hoping
of his horror movies actually.
and praying my new theater that I found. It's an AMC. On Mondays at 4:00 is the magic number to go where there's no humans.
On
So
Monday.
fucking good.
Monday.
And it was cool Mondays, and it was cool too when I left too. There was 2 youths who were getting ready to clean the theater, and they're just like looking at me, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, bros, there's nothing in there. It was just me. Only no
There's
food.
a turd in the third row.
If-
Other than that,
There's
That
a
is-
couple of dirty
I was
papers.
gonna say,
Yeah.
that is the most suspicious thing. If an old man was like, "Trust me, there's nothing in here,"
They went straight
I would
in there.
immediately go up to his seat and figure out what kind of fucking biological disaster I'd have to deal
I know.
with.
I'm like, any of you got a long pole because there was an adult diaper sticking to the ceiling? You might want to get that first.
get a gaff stick and just get a
That's
gaff
it.
that thing.
Trust me,
That's-
there's nothing to see in here.
Move along,
Oh.
boys.
All right, I
So-
gotta go. I gotta call.
All right,
I gotta
yeah.
call. I gotta go. So
All
I'll
right.
see you guys later.
Later, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. I'm
Yeah,
actually
but-
like ending the call this time.
Did you end the podcast already?
Oh no, I haven't. You know.
Just all said bye.
Yeah, it's an adage. There you go. All right, now
All
I'm
right.
ending the call. Later, y'all.
Bye, everybody.